we try to make this rational. There are no more rules to the game. There are no more alliances for the Trump voters. There are no more regional organizations that are the lines here. There is only what Donald Trump thinks is good for Donald Trump and what his advisors think is good for American power. And that's the new world.
Hello, my friends, and welcome. Something really outstanding happened. Ukraine hit the tanker of the Russian shuttle oil fleet in Mediterranean Sea. Yeah, we all got used to all of those Ukrainian strikes on Russian tankers, Russian oil, but it is the first time the Ukrainian SBU conducts the spider web-like operation very far away using drones. Let's watch this video. Ukrainian SBU already published it. It shows the tanker. It is quite big, and you see what happened? Ukraine used the drone drops to hit the top of the tanker. One kaboom, another kaboom, one more kaboom. Yeah, small drones, you can see, yeah? They're flying here. Boom. Maybe those are the kamikaze drone strikes, but looks like the drone drops here. As for me. Yeah, definitely something is dropped from the drones. And you can see the damage to the tubes and everything. Later on the tanker started to burn. Oh my god, this is huge. We have this image also circulating in internet, probably from the same tanker, filmed in Mediterranean Sea, completely on fire. Numerous of the drone drops caused this fire to spread. Well, there is a conflicting information coming whether this tanker was full of oil or not. Ukrainian side says that it was empty and the fire was spread because there is residual oil left in the pipelines or inside the tanker in general. Also, somehow we have the unconfirmed report about the presence of the head of the Russian military intelligence General Andrei Averyanov on board of that tanker. I wonder what he was doing there. Well, this report is still needed to be processed and confirmed by multiple of the sources. Andrei Averyanov is the general of the Russian intelligence who is attributed responsibility for espionage in other countries, sabotage explosions, and launch of UAVs to the European Union countries. It is also he who likely blew up Prigozhin's plane and poisoned Skripal, ex-Russian spy in Britain. It is also reported that his deputies were on board. Total 7 people were injured, 2 of whom flatlined together with this general. But again, this information was posted in the morning, and I'm still looking for confirmation or disapproval of it. Yeah, of course, I would like it to be that way, but it looks strange for the head of the Russian group to be on that ship, far away from Russia, just a tanker, They used to fly alive, they do not travel on tankers. At this moment, I'm kind of skeptical, and we'll see in the future if this general appears somewhere in media field, but again, he is in a Russian group, so he's not a public person at all, unlike Ukrainian Kudanov of Gur. And this is the picture of the tanker. The name of it is Quantil, is in the East Mediterranean, reported 3 hours ago. Yes, burning. The vessel is en route to port of Aliaga, Turkey, sailing at speed of 11 knots, but yet it is the old data. Goes to Aliaga from Suez Channel, Egypt. In 2025, the registration of the vessel is Oman, but it changed lots of the flags throughout the time. And here you may see it operates from the Russian ports of Primorsk and delivers crude oil to India. I wondered how it was possible for a Ukrainian drone boat that carried those aerial drones, which in their turn dropped some of the goods on the tanker to a en route to port of Aliaga, Turkey, sailing at speed of 11 knots, but yet it is the old data. Goes to Aliaga from Suez Channel, Egypt. In 2025, the registration of the vessel is Oman, but it changed lots of the flags throughout the time. And here you may see it operates from the Russian ports of Primorsk and delivers crude oil to India. I wondered how it was possible for a Ukrainian drone boat that carried those aerial drones, which in their turn dropped some of the goods on the tanker to appear in Mediterranean Sea. There are 2 straits it needs to cross, Bosphorus and Dardanelles, so I guess I spelled it correctly. So here it one Istanbul connects the Black Sea and Mediterranean, and the other is Dardanelles Strait, Dardanelles, yeah, it goes over here. For Ukrainian drone to cross it unspotted is impossible. That's why I think that the drone was carried out to Mediterranean, to the water somewhere from one of those maybe European, maybe even not European countries, or it was delivered to Mediterranean Sea in container in one of the ships. Maybe it's like one of the variants. And why did I compare the separation with the spider web? Then Ukraine hit lots of the Russian strategic bombers. Well, because of the distance and the way how those drones were used. So you have the mother drone with a spider web, those were trucks. Here you have the drone boat operating very, very far away. So the drones lift off and they attack some sort of the object. So Ukraine opens this, I wouldn't say Pandora box, but the new variant of how to use those drones. And even the country the size of Ukraine with the proper technologies able to target pretty much any place in the world in this case, yeah, because you have the internet connection, may have it, or those drones could be just programmed to lift off and drop the presence autonomously. I think that the modern day technologies may have already allowed it to happen. And it's not just about Ukraine, I guess some of the other forces sadly, but also may use this variant of attacks. It is imminent. And why is it happening? Well, if Ukraine had enough military support, it wouldn't need to invent this sort of the strikes to cut Russian economy, oil supplies, if the sanctions, strict sanctions were applied right away. But we see that our allies, sometimes they're very slow or they're afraid to escalate. That's why Ukraine has to deal with Russia as it can. Ukraine doesn't have nukes, Ukraine doesn't have long-range it's still in limited production. So Ukraine tries to find out the variants just to survive. The idea is to cut economy for Russia to degrade it little by little, and we see how it is working. Sadly, it creates the precedent for others to look, we can use the drones like that from the drone boats with the help of the Starlink or other systems. Some of the shady groups of people may look at it, and Russia, by the way, may try to perform the same act. But of course, not against their own tankers. That might create a chaos in the entire world. Drone technologies, they are developing. So those kind of attacks, it was just a matter of time for them to happen, and this war just expedited everything of that. And according to the most recent information, probably it wasn't the drone boat that carried those aerial drones, it was one more ship that belonged to Ukraine. So potentially Ukraine may strike any sort of the Russian vessel or the vessel that carries Russian crude oil in every point of the world. Yeah, it's easy nowadays. And that was the last location of the ship in the Mediterranean. You can see somewhere in the middle. And we also see how geography of this war has expanded. Mediterranean Sea, crazy. Who would have thought about it? Not just the strikes deep inside Russia, but in Mediterranean waters. But also Ukraine hit platforms, oil platforms in Caspian Sea once again. Here we don't have the video itself, but the still images. Once again, those are the new images. The oil platforms belong to Russia in Caspian. This is how it looks. It was confirmed that they sustained several of the new strikes. Those will be continued. This is oil platform from what I've seen. Well, Putin already gets angry. He mentioned that there will be retaliation action from the Russian Federation on Ukraine. Well, Russia does it all the time. They cut Ukrainian infrastructure, logistics, oil supplies as well, factories, refineries. Russia does it since the beginning of the war. But for Ukraine, it's a new step in hurting those Russian oil tankers. And there was also the information from the Axios published around 1 week ago that Donald Trump's administration allowed Ukraine to commence those strikes. Well, it just appeared that Donald Trump's administration just doesn't care. They didn't give Ukraine this permission or something. Ukraine doesn't need the permission. But Donald Trump is quite okay with what Ukraine does against Russian refineries, military infrastructure, or tankers. And we have the new very detailed images from Novorossiysk military port of the Russian Federation, where Ukraine launched a submarine drone strike on one of the Russian submarines. Those images were kind of fresh by the time, and they show the damage down to the stern, like no stern, probably it was kaput. Yeah, this is the comparison with the other submarine. The aft part is visible here. It seems like it's not. Later on, Russians removed one of the submarines, leaving just the damage down in this part of the bay. That shows that definitely it was damaged. Otherwise, Russians would have removed it as well. Alright, here we have the good news. After all, European Union agreed to lend Ukraine 90 billion euros, which is more than $100